Unit 23. Sentence structure. Assertion, question, negation, and exclamation. In this topic, we are going to study the language unit, which is basic to convey ideas. Thus, being able to form sentences in a proper way is essential in order to establish and maintain communication. But before getting into further explanation, we have to consider the basic distinctions between sentences. Sentences are either simple or multiple. A simple sentence consists of a single independent clause. A multiple sentence contains one or more clauses as its immediate constituents. Multiple sentences are either compound or complex. In a compound sentence, the immediate constituents are two or more coordinate clauses. In a complex sentence, one or more of its elements, such as direct object or adverbial, are realized by a subordinate clause. Moreover, elements such as subject and verb are the basic constituents of sentences, and also of clauses within sentences. We shall speak of clauses and clause structure whenever what we say applies both to sentences and to the clauses of which sentences are composed. Thus, a complex sentence with a subordinate clause can be analyzed twice over, once for the sentence as a whole and once for the subordinate clause included within the sentence. Now we have a clear idea of what a sentence is. Let's present different sentence types according to a formal classification. Simple sentences may be divided into four major syntactic types differentiated by their form. Their use correlates with some discourse functions which will be seen in the next section. 1. Declaratives. The subject is present and generally precedes the verb. Pauline gave Tom a digital watch for his birthday. 2. Interrogatives. The sentences are formally marked in two ways. Yes, no interrogatives. The operator is placed before the subject. Did Pauline give Tom a digital watch for his birthday? WH interrogatives. The interrogative WH is positioned initially. What did Pauline give Tom for his birthday? 3. Imperatives. They are sentences which normally have no overt grammatical subject and whose verb has the base form. Give me a digital watch for my birthday. 4. Exclamatives. Sentences which have an initial phrase introduced by what, how, usually with subject-verb order. What a fine watch he received for his birthday. Associated with these four sentence types are four clauses of discourse functions. A. Statements are primarily used to convey information. B. Questions are primarily used to seek information on a specific point. C. Directives are primarily used to instruct somebody to do something. D. Exclamations are primarily used for expressing the extent to which the speaker is impressed by something. Direct association between syntactic class and semantic class is the norm, but the two classes do not always match. This is the case of the following example, which is syntactically declarative but semantically a question. Pauline gave Tom a digital watch? Considering this formal classification, we will next focus on the simple sentence and its elements. We can establish a combination of 7 major clause types according to the permissible combinations of the 7 functional categories we can ascertain: subject, verb, object, direct object, indirect object, complement, subject complement, object complement, adverbial, subject related, object related. Some examples of the previous categories in combination are the following. He'll get a surprise, he's getting angry, he got through the window, he got her a splendid present, he got his shoes and socks wet, he got himself into trouble. So as we can see, we have subject, verb, object, subject, verb, complement, subject, verb, adverbial, subject, verb, indirect object and direct object, subject, verb, direct object and complement. And also we have got here subject, verb, direct object and adverb. The adverb can be subject related or object related. So for example, in he got through the window, it's subject related, but he got himself into trouble, it's related object because it's himself who got in trouble. We continue with not all verbs allow all the combinations. The classification of the verbs according to their complementation is the following. Intransitive, subject verb, the sun is shining. Monotransitive, subject verb object, that lecture bored me. Copular, subject verb and complements, your dinner seems ready. Copular, subject verb complement object, my office is in the next building. Detransitive, subject verb direct object and indirect object, I must send my parents an anniversary card. So first is the indirect object and then the direct object. Complex transitive, subject, verb, object and complement object. Most students have found her reasonably helpful. And then complex transitive, subject, verb, object and adverbial. So for example, we have you can put the dish on the table, and the dish is the object, direct object, and on the table is the adverb that is accompanying the object. The elements O, D, C, S, and CO and A are obligatory elements in the clause structure in that they are required for the complementation of the verb. Given the use of a particular verb in a particular sentence, the sentence is incomplete if one of these elements is omitted. Your dinner seems, obviously if you say that, it's not finished. However, in some cases, a direct object or an object complement could, from one point of view, be considered grammatically optional. They are eating, in between bracket, lunch. We elected her, in between bracket, our delegate. We regard these as cases of conversion, whereby a word such as eat is transferred from the transitive to the intransitive category. Thus, they are eating is an instance of type subject-verb rather than of subject-verb-object. To justify treating object omission as a matter of conversion, we may notice that it applies to some transitive verbs but not to others. They are hunting, in between bracket, deer, so ciervos. But you cannot say they are chasing, in between brackets, cats. We should, in principle, distinguish different types of omission of objects, though the distinction may be blurred instances. A. A specific object is recoverable from the preceding linguistic context. Let's do the dishes. I'll wash, and you'll dry. B. A specific object is understood from the situational context. Keep off, in between brackets, sign on grass. C. A specific reflexive object is understood when the verb allows such an object. I'm shaving. D. A non-specific object is semantically entailed. So you could say, are you eating again? Up to now, we have been dealing with declarative sentences. We will now study interrogative sentences. Questions can be divided into three major classes according to the type of reply they expect. Those that expect affirmation or negation, yes/no questions. Those that typically expect a reply from an open range of replies, WH questions. Those that expect as the reply of two or more options represented in the questions, alternative questions. Yes-no questions are usually formed by placing the operator before the subject and giving the sentence as a rising intonation. Has the boat left? Has the boat left? Is Anne writing a paper? If there is no item in the verb phrase that can function as operator, do is introduced as with negation. Do they live in Sydney? Did her efforts prove useful? Again, as with negation, main verb be functions as operator. In British English, main verb have often acts as operator, but informally have got is more common. Was Patrick late? Does she have a cold? Has she got a cold? Does she have a cold is American style, American English, and has she got a cold is British English. Like negative statements, yes-no questions may contain non-assertive forms such as any and ever. The questions containing such forms is generally neutral, with no bias in expectation towards a positive or negative response. Did anyone call last night? Has the boat left yet? But questions may be conducive. Thus, a positive question may be presented in a form which is biased towards a positive answer. It has positive orientation, for example, if it uses assertive forms rather than the usual non-assertive forms. Did someone call last night? A positive question may also have negative orientation. Notice the effect of really in do you really want to live now? A question that is not conducive, that has no bias for eliciting a positive or negative response, can be said to have neutral polarity. On the other hand, negative questions are always conducive. Negative orientation is found in questions which contain a negative form of one kind or another. Don't you believe me? Negative orientation is complicated by an element of surprise or disbelief. The implication is that the speaker had originally hoped for a positive response, but new evidence now suggests that the response will be negative. A third type of yes-no questions are the so-called tag questions. Maximum conduciveness is expressed by this type, which conveys positive or negative orientation. The boat hasn't left, has it? Joan recognized you, didn't she? The general rules to form the most common types of tag question are: first, the tag question consists of operator and subject in that order. In formal English, the negative participle is placed after the pronoun. Did they not? Second, the operator is generally the same as the operator of the preceding statement. I haven't seen you before, have I? If the statement has no operator, the dummy auxiliary do is used, as for yes-no questions. She knows you, doesn't she? 3. The subject of a tag must be a pronoun which either repeats or is in co-reference with the subject of the statement, agreeing. 4. If the statement is positive, the tag is generally negative and vice versa. 5. The nuclear tone of the tag occurs on the auxiliary and is either rising or falling. The meaning of these forms involves a statement and a question. The combinations are the following: positive assumption plus neutral expectation. Sentence goes down and tag goes up. Negative assumption plus neutral expectation, sentence down, tag up. Positive assumption plus positive expectation, sentence down and tag down. Negative assumption plus negative expectation, sentence down and tag down. The tag with a rising tone invites verification, expecting the hearer to decide the truth of the proposition in the statement. The tag with the falling tone, on the other hand, invites confirmation of the statement and has the force of an exclamation rather than a genuine question. WH questions are formed with the aid of one of the following simple interrogative words: who, whom, whose, what, which, when, where, how, why. Unlike yes-no questions, WH questions generally have falling intonation as a rule. The WH element comes first in the sentence, except conjuncts like on the other hand. The WH word itself takes first position in the WH element. The only expectation to the second principle is when the WH word is within a prepositional complement. Here, English provides a choice between two constructions, one being formal and the other more informal, in what is called preposition stranding. On what did you base your prediction? What did you base your prediction on? The functions of the WH element are varied. They are the following: subject, whoever opened my letter. Direct object, which books have you lent him? Complements, whose beautiful antiques are these? Object complement, how wide did they make the bookcase? Adverb, when will you be promoted? We can see in the examples above that the normal statement order of elements is altered in WH questions, not only by the initial placing of the WH element, but also by the inversion of subject. Subject operator inversion is the same in its application to WH questions as in its application to yes-no questions. If there is no operator in the equivalent statement, do is introduced as operator in the question. The main verb be and occasionally have act as operator. Where is she? What kind of car have they? Finally, alternative questions offer a choice between usually two pair of items. Do you prefer tea or coffee? The addressee can only choose between these two elements. The intonation counter is rising in the first element and falling in the last one. If there are more than two options, all the elements have rising intonation except the last one. Do you prefer Kipling, Twain, or Whitman? The following type of sentences we will be dealing with is directives. We will distinguish the following types. First, directives without a subject. Directives typically take the form of an imperative sentence, which differs from a declarative sentence in that it generally has no subject and it has either a main verb in the base form or, less commonly, an auxiliary in the base form followed by the appropriate form of the main verb. Otherwise, the clause patterns of imperative sentences show the same range and ordering of elements as declaratives. For example, jump, open the door, be reasonable, get inside, tell me the truth, consider yourself lucky, put the flowers on the table. The imperative verb lacks tense distinction and does not allow modal auxiliaries. The progressive form is rare and the perfective even rarer. Be listening to this station the same time tomorrow night. Start the book and have finished it before you go to bed. Similar to the causative. Passives with be occur chiefly in negative directives, where they generally have the meaning don't allow yourself to be, although they are also possible in positive directives. Don't be deceived by his looks. What might be treated as passives occur with get, as in get washed, get dressed, or don't get misled by their premises. Imperatives refer to a situation in the immediate or more remote future and are therefore incompatible with time adverbials that refer to a time period in the past or that have habitual reference. Come yesterday, usually drive your car. So with the asterisk is wrong. Directives with a subject. It is intuitively clear that the meaning of a directive implies that the omitted subject is the second person pronoun you. There is, however, a type of directive in which the stressed subject you is added. You may be non-contrastive and admonitory. For example, you say, you mind your own business. They frequently express strong irritation or merely insistence. On the other hand, non-contrastive you may be persuasive. I know you can do it if you try hard enough. You show me what you can do. You may also be contrastive in the sense of addressee, distinguishing, singling out one person or one set of persons. They identify of the persons may be made clear by a vocative or by some gesture such as pointing. Don't tell me to be quiet, you be quiet. Here, you take the book. Third-person subjects are also possible. Somebody open this door. Nobody move. Directives with let. First-person imperatives can be formed by proposing the verb let followed by a subject in the objective case. Let us all work hard. Let me think what to do next. The same applies to third-person subjects. Let no one think that a teacher's life is easy. 4. Negative directives. To negate the first three classes of imperative, one simply adds an initial don't or do not, replacing assertive by non-assertive items where necessary. Open the door, don't open the door. You open the door, don't you open the door. You don't open the door. Someone open the door. Don't anyone open the door. No one open the door. First-person imperatives, on the other hand, are generally negated by the insertion of not after the pronoun following let. Let's not say anything about it. Don't let's say anything about it, British English. Let's don't say anything about it, American style or American English. Third-person imperatives with let are negated by not after let or by initial not. Let not anyone fool himself that he can get away with it. Don't let anyone fool himself. Finally, we are going to present the structure and elements of exclamative sentences. Exclamatives as a formal category of sentence are introduced by how, what. How wonderful it is. What a wonderful surprise. Exclamatives resemble WH questions in requiring the initial placement of an exclamatory WH element. The syntactic order is therefore upset to the extent that the WH element, which may be object, complement, or adverbial as well as subject, may be taken from its usual statement position and put into a position of initial prominence. On the other hand, in contrast to WH questions, there is generally no subject-object inversion. What an enormous crowd came! What a time we've had today! How delightful her manners are! How quickly you can eat! Only two WH words can be used to form the WH element in exclamatory sentences. What as predeterminer in a noun phrase, and how as intensifier of an adjective, adverb, or clause. The limitation to these functions is not surprising when one realizes that the WH word indicates an extreme position on some scale of value and therefore can only appear at points in the sentence where an expression of degree is possible. The same functions are fulfilled, especially in some women's speech, by the emphatic degree items such as a determiner and so as an intensifier in statements and questions. We've had such a time. Her manners are so delightful. Why did they tease you so? Exclamatives are very frequently indeed reduced by ellipses to the single WH element. What a terrible wind! How encouraging! As a conclusion, we have tried to present a general overview of the different types of sentences and how they are constructed. We have also explained how the user of the language can convey different ideas by resorting to different intonation patterns. In fact, being able to form sentences and, at the same time, use them in appropriate context is essential to convey facts, ideas, and therefore make our communication effective. Bibliography: Carter McCarthy, 2006, Cambridge Grammar of English, a comprehensive guide, spoken and written English grammar and usage. Crystal D., 2004, The Cambridge Encyclopedia of the English Language. Murphy, English Grammar in Use. Swan, 2005, Practical English Usage, Oxford University Press. Willis D., 2003, Rules, Patterns, and Words. Grammar and Lexis in English Language Teaching. Thambird, 2013, A Handbook of English Grammar.